The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, and we've got two great panelists tonight. Let me introduce them to you. Both newbies to the show, I believe. First up, we have proud NRA life member, former NRA employee, current government contractor, firearms instructor, Andy Lander. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to be here.
Love it. Next up, director of the Personal Defense Network and EVP of 2AO.org. You know him, you love him. It's Rob Pincus. What's up?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Glad to have you both. And I want to get right into the stories because we have a lot to cover tonight. But before I do, I want to remind everybody to check out the Patriot Patch Company. That's patriotpatch.co if you like patches, if you like cool patches that will make you 75% more attractive to the ladies and up your charisma by a +7. I think you should definitely go check them out. First story, North Carolina bill would make pistol purchase permits more forgiving. This is, I actually didn't even realize that it was like this in North Carolina. So basically, if you have a pistol purchase permit, every single time you buy a firearm, you would have to fill out paperwork with the sheriff's department. And they have made a change now that they want to make a single permit good for 5 years, regardless of how many handguns the person buys. So you could go buy as many as you absolutely wanted without anything but having to do extra paperwork. So if you bought 3 guns in a day, or you went to a gun show, one day and bought a gun, and then the next day bought another gun, you would have to fill out information and paperwork with the sheriff's department every single time. So they're trying to decrease the bureaucracy without taking any freedoms away, which is what they say. Rob Pincus, I'll start with you. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that decreasing bureaucracy is always a great idea. We always have to just keep a real watchdog eye on how they're decreasing the bureaucracies. In other words, if you think about, the idea that background checks were, when they came into the being in the 90s and we started having background checks, people were really excited about, well, let me go out and get a concealed carry permit or do these other things so that I don't have to worry about waiting periods in some states, or maybe I don't have to worry about going through some other hoops inside of certain states where, you might need for example, I'm in Nebraska right now where you need a firearms purchase card unless you have a concealed carry permit. Well, one of the problems I have is where we start trading certain freedoms to make our lives easier. And that's the only thing I would worry about there, not being familiar with the details of how the system currently works versus how they want it to work. I just want to make sure we're not trading, one freedom for another.
Andy, what are your thoughts? Oh, he's gone.
Bye, Andy. I love that guy. I don't know why he left.
I just looked right over. Oh, there he is.
He's back.
Andy's back. So did you even know that it was like that in North Carolina, Andy?
Well, I didn't hear a word Rob said again. I don't know what's right, but are you talking about the if you have a permit to carry, you can bypass the whole handgun thing? Yeah,
but you have to fill out paperwork with the sheriff for every single gun you buy.
I knew on my trips there, I knew they had done something like that. I didn't know that was now the case. So
they're getting.
No, I did.
It looks like they're getting rid of it now. It'll last for 5 years, and you can buy as many guns as you want to without having to fill out the extra paperwork, which isn't a yay or a nay of whether you can buy the gun. But I just thought it was kind of interesting. I kind of figured North Carolina would be, a bastion of freedom, and there's silly laws everywhere.
Yes, there are.
Senator Lindsey Graham introduces FFL Protection Act of 2019, and the NSSF approves. So this one is, he introduced a bill that would increase penalties for thefts from FFL holders, which clearly already illegal, but this would increase the penalties for those. Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely a good thing. People that are stealing guns need to go to jail, and they need to stay there.
Yeah, 100% agree. The numbers I was actually pretty surprised about. There's been a 71% increase in the number of thefts from FFLs from 2013 to 2017. Which peaked at 577. In 2018, the number fell to 427, which is a 26% drop, but still well above 338 in 2013. 6,000 firearms were stolen from FFLs and burglaries and robberies in 2018. Rob Pincus, did you know that it was that widespread?
Yeah, I did know that there's been a dramatic increase. In fact, one of the things that happens when I travel around on tour and I get to spend a lot of time at different gun shops around the country is I hear these stories. I was just in Wisconsin, and they have a very secure building. They're very centrally located. They have a great response time from their local police, but they've even had some attempts at break-ins, and all their security procedures, including their physical security procedures, have worked. But I also know that law enforcement and the local dealers, the FFLs, are starting to pay more attention to this. So I know in Colorado, in our home state there, we've had a lot of problems with this as well, both down, in the Springs and up in Denver. So we've seen this all over the country, and I'm glad to see that it's being, sort of responded to. At the end of the day, though, kind of like Andy said, I mean, stealing guns is illegal. Let's enforce the laws on the books, right? I mean, you put a vote up in front of me, whether I get stiffer penalties for people who do breaking and entering and burglary and robbery of FFLs, or let's actually prosecute people who lie on 4473s. I want that. Let's use the laws on the books more than we do now.
Yeah, without question. Still, I guess some good news here. The Vermont governor vetoes waiting period bill. This comes to us from the NRA ILA, and Governor Phil Scott vetoed S-169, which would created a 24-hour waiting period on handguns. I think we mostly I'm just assuming here that you guys feel the same way that I do, but I think that waiting periods don't really do anything. They haven't demonstrated any real impact on public safety that I've seen or that anyone else could prove was tangible. And, Andy, what are your thoughts here? Good thing, bad thing?
No, they're absolutely a detriment. Any waiting period whatsoever. I've had personal experience. I've worked behind a couple gun counters, and I've heard people coming in and are absolutely terrified for their own personal safety, whether it's somebody that is stalking them, and they need a gun. They need a gun. Period. They can't wait. And I just believe that waiting periods, one, they don't curb any type of violence or anything, and they don't have that cooling off effect. But people that need the gun right now don't get it. In New Jersey, they just had, I believe, a lady that was she was in her 6-month waiting period, and she was murdered. So, I have to explain this to people all the time. I say in Virginia, we go through an NCI, we go through a national instant check, just like everybody in every state. New York does the same thing. Why does it take in Virginia 15 minutes and it takes 7 months in New York State, which is basically the same thing? It's basically it's trying to discourage you not to buy a gun. That's basically what it's doing.
Yeah. I think that we're both in agreement. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, waiting periods are an infringement period. Vermont's the first state I could legally carry in. So to the original constitutional carry state, it kind of like even the fact that this was being considered to me was like, kind of just emotionally painful. Now, we know that there are issues with suicide prevention that are affected by delaying one's access to a firearm, but there are so few instances where you might be able to draw an actual correlation to a waiting period being a stopgap when you can walk over to the other counter and rent a gun and use it right away. That even being involved in all the mental health stuff, I see that flag kind of waved far too often from, those who are pro gun control. And even people in the mental health world will say it's about the avenues of access you have, and just blocking one, or even potentially blocking one doesn't really affect it. So just as a caveat to people who've seen some of the stuff come through, some of our allies on the mental health side with Walk the Talk America, there is no indication that waiting periods being instituted is going to have any significant statistical effect on suicides either. So 100%, and definitely glad Vermont maintained their status there.
Yeah, definitely. House measure seeks to repeal the Gun-Free School Zones Act. I thought this was kind of interesting. Comes to us from guns.com, but this measure would basically just scrap the federal gun-free zone rules when passing within 1,000 feet of a school. And this was public, private, and parochial elementary and high schools nationwide. It's been introduced. Clearly, it's going to have a long path and a long row in front of it. This basically just allows the federal government to bug out and let states do the things that they're going to do to protect the schools, or not protect the schools, as it were. Andy, do you have thoughts on this?
I believe that the gun-free zone thing is a farce. Even if you have a sign up that says gun-free zone, if you don't believe there's a gun in your school, you need to you probably need your head examined. I mean, people, if somebody wants to bring a gun to school, they're going to get a gun in school. That's it. And the question is, do you want it just the bad guy to have a gun, or the kid that's intent on doing bad things, or the criminal intent on doing bad things, or do you want the good guys with the guns? So they need to just get rid of the gun-free zone thing. That's I think in the 1980s, airplane pilots were required to carry guns when they were carrying U.S. mail back like before 1985 or something like that. I remember reading, and you didn't see a lot of hijacked aircraft. And then after that, all of a sudden, there was a change. I'm sorry, pilots were allowed to carry guns in the cockpit is what I meant. But the whole thing about gun-free zones, that just needs to go away because it's not a reality.
Yeah. I'm definitely with you on that. Rob, what do you think of this, and do you think it has any chance to actually pass?
Well, I think that's the important part, right? Is does it have any chance to pass? I don't see how that, there's a great website. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's kind of like gives you the chances of bills either making it out of committee or making it, through both houses and actually making it a law. I got to imagine this one's in the single digits on percentages. It'd be great if it went away. I wouldn't put much money on it, but I would expect to win big. The odds on this one are against it in Vegas, I'm sure.
Yeah. Coming to us from Illinois, Deerfield, Illinois, assault weapons ban appeal gets dismissed. So they basically banned assault weapons in their hamlet of Deerfield. And that basically, they came through and put an injunction on it, said, nope, that is not going to work. They appealed it. And now the Second District Appellate Court has dismissed this attempt. And they dismissed it for lack of jurisdiction, but man, Deerfield just will not give up. Rob, are you familiar with them and what they've tried to do?
Yeah, very, very familiar with this case. Really important case because it was a preemption case. Essentially, what happened was Illinois, all the municipalities were given a window of opportunity to establish like storage laws, especially and specifically. And if they had even wanted to, let's say, ban a certain type of firearm by saying you can't store a certain type of firearm inside a municipality, they would have had a court fight back then. But because of the way the rules were written in Illinois, they had already closed that rule, that opportunity to really do anything significant in terms of storage laws inside of any of the municipalities. So that window had closed. They were trying to, quote unquote, rewrite the storage law, but really create a ban for certain types of firearms inside of the city. And that was shut down. And it was a well fought fight by Illinois State Rifle Association and Second Amendment Foundation. Of course, other people I'm sure signed on to that as well, but I know they did a lot of the heavy lifting and the early work, and especially Second Amendment Foundation kept pushing for the dismissal because obviously the injunction, a lot of people hear that and then they just relax. Oh, okay, we've won. Well, now we've won. So that was good news to come out and find out that this is now apparently completely done, and Deerfield's gonna have to maybe try something else, but this route has been closed off to them, even though it was technically closed once before. They tried an end run and didn't work.
Yep. Very good. Andy, thoughts?
Man, I feel like I've been out of the game. I did hear a blip about this, but, the assault weapons ban, I'm pretty anti, assault weapons as far as, having them banned, I guess. I always, like to tell students that assault weapon is basically a manufactured term by, a group of individuals back in the early 90s that was, trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the, less knowing. It was the 1994 crime bill. So as far as I'm concerned, anything when it comes to that kind of needs to be shot down. I'm really unfamiliar with that particular case, but, I'm not for banning any type of semi-automatic standard capacity or even guns that just hold 30 rounds. I'm for trying to overturn that stuff.
Yep, definitely. Armed Good Samaritan comes to the aid of a Missouri police officer that was shot by an inmate. This actually has been some new information that's come out on this. So inmate gets shot, or inmate gets gun away from officer gets shot. Witness basically reports and says, hey, one of these Good Samaritans was able to control the situation because he carried his own gun. And you would think that this comes from guns.com or AmmoLand or something like that, because it does seem heavily pro 2A. But no, it comes from KCTV, which is the Channel 5 station there locally, that affiliate. She further says that she posted the information not to make a political statement about guns, but to tell the truth about what happened and how conceal and carry can help in dangerous situations. Andy, what are your thoughts? Conceal carry a good idea?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I apologize. My dog was going bat crazy at the back door. That's why I've been running back and forth. No, I did see that. At first when I read that article, I was like, Trenton, how's that possible? And then oh wait, it's Trenton, Missouri, not Trenton, New Jersey. But no, I believe that, citizens, we need to carry, and to an extent, we need to be able to come to the aid of others in case there is a time somebody's in need that does it. I don't think you should be poking your nose in everybody's business, but, bad people do bad things. And bad people stop doing bad things if enough people stand up and start fighting back. I mean, look what happened, active shooter back in Dallas 2 days ago. That guy went in, he wanted a body count. And he met up with some people that had returned fire. Yeah. And he didn't last long. Yeah,
I definitely want to talk about that one in detail. Rob, what do you think about Good Samaritan coming to the aid of an officer that had been shot?
It's one of those very, very careful things we got to talk about. We want to caution people against, as they getting involved in things they really don't know what's going on. But I always say in every class, we're talking about defending yourself or those that you care about. That doesn't just mean your family, right? In the moment you look over and you see someone that you can help, police officer in uniform, clearly being overpowered, or someone's taken their weapon or injured them. Obviously there's a compelling, interest in caring about that human being just as a human being, but maybe particularly because they are the person who's, taken the oath and they have the lights and they have the badge and you feel compelled to act. I wouldn't ever say to someone that they're completely 100% wrong for doing that. But I also wouldn't suggest that just because you carry a gun, you are now, sanctioned to run towards the gunfire and always try to get involved. I think we have to be careful about that. So it's a balancing act, for sure. It sounds like this was a good story. And I think for me, the most interesting part of that is the media aspect of the truth being told, because we hear so much fear mongering and kind of like victimization, victim mentality inside of our community that the mainstream media, nobody ever talks about this. So good on you for finding a story where, and I think there are many examples where the truth is simply told and shared. And, it may not be that big a deal to the average person. To us, it's a big deal because we care about these things. So we want to see it, 24-hour news cycle, the whole thing, but we won't get that because it's an incidental story to most people. But these stories do get shared a lot more than I think people give general media the credit for.
Yeah. All right. This next one I just thought was kind of interesting. 18 people showed up for Representative Swalwell's gun control speech. This is a person who wants to run for president of the United States of America. He had a little rally kind of thing, and the pictures are truly pathetic. The 18 people showed up. He pushed a gun ban and buyback for every single assault weapon, I say with air quotes. And he says, making sure first and foremost, no more assault weapons are manufactured, with the plan to buy back the 15 million that are in circulation in our communities today. So clearly he is speaking to a very passionate audience. And I don't really think anyone cares. Rob, what do you think?
First of all, like 15 million, what does he count? I'd love to hear his definition of an assault weapon, because a lot of the times I hear assault weapon from anti-gun or pro-gun control people. They're talking about things that I think are approaching 100 million guns out there out of the 350 million guns in America.
Yeah.
Semi-auto, stuff like that. So I don't think this guy has really much clue on gun control. He obviously doesn't know how to run a rally. My number one comment was, I think at this point, we could have a rally out in front of the NRA headquarters with American gun owners that are more concerned about making the NRA better. We could have a much bigger rally than he had to end gun rights.
Yeah. Andy, what are your thoughts here?
I think the guy is trying to appeal to a certain extreme crowd, kind of maybe on the flip side of what happened in the last election with Donald Trump, sort of. But yeah, first of all, how are you going to get those? How are you going to enforce that? How are you going to get people to turn in guns? What are you going to do? You have to pay people back 15 million. Let's just say it's 15 million. Let's say you have to pay somebody back what they're worth. I mean, we're talking millions, possibly billions of dollars to do that. And then who's going to enforce it? I mean, these politicians want to get, they want somebody else to go do the dirty work. They don't want to actually do it themselves. I think it's a pipe dream. He's trying to appeal to certain individuals, getting ready, trying to kind of put his toe in the water, see what people think about gun control as far as gun legislation's coming up for the next election. I don't think he's got a chance. I think he's fishing.
Yeah.
That's the term I can use.
Same.
But,
I mean, let's say an average gun costs $1,000. The average of those 15 million, I mean, that's $15 billion. We'll say 500 is what they're going to give. That's $7.5 billion. So yeah, he is an idiot, and I'm not afraid to say it. Let's move into some less than positive news, although my personal opinion is that this is in the positive news segment, but gunman that targeted Dallas Courthouse is killed during shootout. So guy decked out in face mask and had a bunch of magazines and some kind of AR-15. He rolls up to this federal building and decides to shoot inside of it. and quickly realizes that it was a pretty bad idea for him to do that because he is now dead. No one else is dead, and he has been caught on fire by the meme pages that are out there. Now, Andy, one of the reasons I asked you on the show is because of something that I saw on your Facebook. Why don't you kind of tell us how you're associated or related with the story?
Okay, so Monday, shortly after about 12 o'clock, we got all the instructors for the firearm instructors for the company that I work for, got an email from our vice president of training, and it said that 4 of our contracted officers that we provide to the federal government to protect their federal buildings had been involved in an active shooter. Turns out that that was the Dallas shooting. The media, I went online, and there wasn't, at the time I got the email, there wasn't much being really reported at all. And I had to wait about 2 hours. Like, man, I just got this email from my boss. This should be all over the place. And then I waited, and I saw the first, I think it was possibly ABC or NBC, and they reported, that there was an active shooting at the Earl Cabell Federal Building in Dallas. Well, the news initially reported, as the news gets everything wrong, they said, I think the first report was FPS, which is the Federal Protective Service, which is basically the inspectors, but they're also a police service for the federal government. But they're the inspectors that inspect the contracted security. They said FPS had taken down, and then they actually used terms like federal officers and things like that. But from what I understand, I haven't got the full report. We actually just sent our active shooter instructor for the company down there today with the vice president to kind of do a after action report with the people that were on scene. And so we'll kind of get the full details, lessons learned, things like that. But it found out, no, it was our guys that got involved with that. From what I've kind of put together, and again, I'm getting pieces from different people. There's a couple photos out there of different people. One of them is a picture of a big African American PSO, which stands for Protective Service Officer, and he's kind of looks like he's dodging left or dodging right. If you actually look in the background, he's the shooter's actually shooting at him. You can see that behind the car. And he's taking rounds above his head, and people have kind of crucified him and saying, "Oh, this guy's running away." No, he's actually evacuating. We got the word that there were 4 of our guys on duty at the time, and one of them evacuated everybody, and 3 other guys engaged. That guy did his job. He did what he was trained to do: evacuate immediate area civilians. Nobody got hurt, and then our guys returned fire. And I can only judge based on what I've seen in the photos. The guy had some type of tactical gear. It looks like he had some type of vest with that possibly could have contained body armor. I don't know yet, but I'm not sure if they snuck one in on him through the thoracic cavity under the elbow or under the armpit, or if he got punched in the or if he got center punched based on some of the photos with the bullet hole in the center of the chest. But somebody got in on him. Somebody took him down, and it was good guys 1 and bad guys 0.
For sure.
And by the way, the thing that I heard actually from an ICE officer today was, and again, I haven't validated this. The media's shown a picture of this guy with, I think, like 10 magazines. Rumor is he had 40.
Dang.
I don't know where those were, if they were in his car or whatever, but the guy was loaded for bear.
It's good stuff. So, Rob Pincus.
I think I was fascinated to hear from Andy yesterday that the private security was involved, and obviously the news kind of slowed to kind of react to that. And it was unfortunate. I was talking to Andy, I guess, last night about the guy who was in that one picture. It's just an unfortunate timing. You know how it is. Like, you can take one freeze frame out of that video and it can look completely ridiculous and be sensationalized. But Andy pointed out, we're like, literally, there's the gunman.
Yeah.
Literally, there's spray coming off the building. And if I'm going to be nitpicky and say, well, why is it, you get that reaction. I get it. If that was the moment the round impacted above your head, that's what we teach, right? You teach you to embrace and accept that you're going to do that. That dude's doing all those natural reaction things. And maybe like a 20th of a second later, he's already turning and reaching for his gun. I don't know. So I thought that was an unfortunate and potentially unfair picture, especially in light of everything that's gone on now with Broward County, with that guy who we have 17 minutes of video of him standing behind a wall doing nothing. And I think a lot of people right away, that guy did he work for Broward County? Was kind of some of the stuff I saw. And it's like, not fair with a simple, still shot. And I think that's really, it's an important reminder to us when we see pictures of, even stuff we post from the range, or we see pictures from a dash camera video. Let's see the video. Let's hear the context. Let's understand the big picture. And so that's an important reminder. So good job to your guys, Andy. Thanks for sharing that inside information too.
Now there is one criticism, and I don't even want to call it criticism, because frankly, to be honest, there really is no criticism, because again, bad guys 0, good guys 1.
Good guys 2 alpha.
Yeah, I mean, a couple guys showed me a picture. In fact, there's a picture out there with 3 of our guys. 2 of them you can see have their guns drawn. There's a guy in a jacket, and he's got a U.S. Marshal lanyard. Now, I don't know this for fact, but I do know that I don't actually think that's a U.S. Marshal. We have a contract that it's called a CSO. It's a court service officer. And our guys are specifically assigned to the marshals. Now, they have jurisdiction inside the federal courthouse. They dress like marshals. They wear the lanyard that say U.S. Marshals on them. But I don't actually think he was a U.S. Marshal. I think he was actually one of our guys that was being in the court position. He was a contracted officer. Now, the one criticism I have, and I hate to say criticism, but if you watch the ground video where the reporter actually ignored the advice of the officer saying, come inside and get safe, that he went across the street and he started filming the guy on the ground. If you look at that video, that same CSO is standing over him and he's like focused. He's standing there for a few minutes. He's just staring at the guy. Again, I wasn't there. I'm sure in the moment people had some emotions going, but one of the lessons we can take away from that is if something like that happens and there's a bad guy on the ground and you need to find work. What I mean by that is you need to, if 2 guys are working on that guy and you're just standing there staring, you need to do something else besides just stare. You need to go out and maybe look for somebody else. Okay. You don't have to post up or anything like that, but you need to go out and find a different job. Find a different work. What I mean by that is, look around, maybe possibly look and see if the guy had another handgun he dropped under a car or something like that. But just standing there staring is probably not a good thing. But again, that's just a small critique, No,
I get it. 100%. So the guy that was getting shot at and someone snapped a picture of him like mid getting shot at. I'm just yelling serpentine, bro. Like, do your thing. I don't care. Like, just get away from the shooter and then turn around and do. So I saw that picture. I didn't think anything critically of him at all. I'm like, do whatever you need to do. I do want to bring up one more thing that I'd like to discuss with you guys on this. And I think I just started thinking about this today. I don't know if maybe I just read it somewhere and stole someone else's idea, but I think that the response to this criminal has been amazing in the public eye. And maybe it's just because I live in an echo chamber and I see all the gun pages and everything doing things, but this guy has been memed, and mocked and made fun of. And I've seen pictures of the dead individual multiple times that have been memed and made fun of. We always talk about mainstream media or just media glorification of the killers by saying their names and talking about their body counts and doing all this and doing all of that. And now for the first time ever, and maybe it's just because he was not very good at what he was trying to do, we see just the pure mockery, which is the opposite of that. Do you think, and I'll start with you, Rob Pincus, do you think that maybe this is the start of something new, or is it just because he just clearly seemed way out of his comfort zone? Do you think that the mockery of this killer is a good thing, and B, maybe a turnaround of that glorification principle?
I think I'm going to go in a direction I don't normally go, because I don't like to empower like some of the fear, safe space, kind of thing, right? The political correctness. But let me just say, if the same thing kind of was done with the would-be spree killer that flew up from Florida and came up to Denver around the anniversary of Columbine, but because of the nature of who she was and the way she killed herself with the gun and the way that ended, it didn't really get any traction. It was harder to make fun of her because she was more of a sympathetic young girl that was obviously troubled. The trans gender person that shot the Denver STEM school up, the young girl guy, 16-year-old. Like, there was some mockery there of just the lifestyle and things like that. And obviously that wasn't tolerated. That was sort of stamped out because it was denigrating her as a, human and not as a killer, or he as a killer, or however you want to go down that road. There were issues there because of the race or the gender or whatever you want to say with a lot of shooters. And I think when you start this guy was like a white guy, veteran, all the tactical gear you could buy, Sportsman's Guide for $20. I mean, all the things were lined up. nobody's there to defend this guy, right? Nobody's going to stand up and say, but he was a veteran. In fact, a lot of people are acting like, he wasn't. Well, he raised his hand. He gave that oath. He did all those things, but this guy has like no sympathy whatsoever. No group who wants to defend him or claim him or feel sympathetic for him. I think if we tried to do the same thing with a lot of other spree killers, we'd find ourselves, being told we were callous and we are not helping solve the problem. So I think from that standpoint on this one, we all get a pass. I don't know that it's a trend that we're going to be able to see, go anywhere, nor should it, because really we're denigrating the person as opposed to the act. And I think the act is what we need to be focused on and getting people to help. That obviously this guy needed some kind of help beforehand and we wouldn't have had this. And I think that's important to stay. And that's not maybe what I'm supposed to say or where we were going with it or where the internet memes want to be, but I think that's the right place to be.
Awesome. Andy, thoughts on that aspect?
I actually agree with Rob on this. I'm actually kind of torn because one, we actually don't know. Maybe this guy was actually just wanting to commit suicide by cop. Yeah. We don't know. Dead man tell no tales, so we can't go back and ask him. But then there's the other side of the coin that any publicity, whether negative or positive, is good publicity. So somebody that's a copycat could see that and say, "Well, this guy is now a meme legend. I want to be one too." I don't know. So I'm kind of torn. I mean, yeah, the guy did take an oath. However, I think he kind of violated that oath when he decided to take up arms and shoot at people. But it's a tough one. I guess the safe bet is to just not mention his name. Yeah. I guess that's the safe bet. Yep. To possibly discourage others, but the internet's going to do what the internet does, and that's the problem. Is I'm not the internet police. I don't think Rob's the internet police. In fact, I was reading an article about the internet police down in Florida, and apparently people are having heart attacks at age 40.
I am the internet police for the gun community, so I've taken on that mantle. I'll gladly be up on.
I love it.
So.
All right, good. Good talk, guys. Thank you very much for your opinions there. Gun Owners of America has serious concerns over Trump's anti-gun pick to head up the ATF. This is the Trump. He has nominated the Fraternal Order of Police President Chuck Canterbury to head the ATF. Gun Owners of America Legislative Counsel Mike Hammond maintains that he's demonstrated a strong anti-gun bias as head of the FOP. And he says, and I quote, "He certainly opposed aspects of the constitutional carry legislation that's being proposed in Ohio. He went up and did a happy dance on behalf of Sonia Sotomayor when she was nominated for the Supreme Court and Eric Holder when he was nominated as Attorney General. And he seems to fall within the trend of Trump nominating anti-gun zealots to top Justice Department positions." What do you guys think? The head of the ATF being reasonably anti-gun. I mean, he's responsible for implementing the nation's gun laws. Is this good, bad, indifferent? Andy Lander, I'll start with you.
Trump's got me scared. I'll be honest with you. And this is going to kind of leach into the whole NRA thing, I think. So I won't try to go there, but I think Trump tries to appeal to a lot of people, and he says things and he doesn't actually get guidance. And I think he's elected a bad choice. The ATF director is somebody that can make, I'll just put it this way, our lives a living hell. And he can do that through red tape. They can do that through a bunch of other things. So I would say that that's a bad choice. So lately I'm kind of worried, especially when your son is supposedly a big advocate of the suppressor and silencer community. Yeah. When you come out and say, I don't like silencers or I've never liked them. Well, when you got elected, shortly after, your son was meeting with guys on the board there. We were hoping for the Hearing Protection Act, and now we're trying to ban them. So, or we're saying they're not good. So I'm worried. I don't think it's a good move.
Yeah.
So that's my final thought.
Rob, what are your thoughts?
I do think it says a lot about Trump and his real position and real thoughts on guns. And even if you're going to say, well, he's not getting guidance, well, that's because it's not important to him. I don't care what his son thinks. I think the industry needs to stop fawning over his son, quite frankly. It's like, look at, Reagan's kids weren't exactly like super conservative and awesome. Yeah. He didn't pose for Playgirl after his daughter was in Playboy. So I don't know what this perceived connection is. The connection between Trump and the NRA is troublesome because he owes us, right? He owes us through the NRA, and he is not paying us back, and he hasn't paid us back, and he's done us some harm. And I think this is further proof that he's not pro-gun, and we should not be saying things like, we're going to support him in 2020 no matter who he runs against because we don't like Democrats. He needs to be held accountable for his actions to the gun community. Now, I'm not saying that means we vote for the Democrat. I'm just saying 18 months ahead of time, we don't need to be giving him a free pass, especially right now.
Yeah, I'm with you guys 100%. In the files of, oh wow, ATF is looking for thousands of guns and parts stolen and sold by an employee. So this guy has been charged with a ton of stuff, but apparently a longtime guard at the ATF facility. And this is the ATF National Firearms and Ammunition Destruction Branch in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Apparently he's been charged now for stealing what they say, the government says, a significant amount of firearms and selling them. So apparently he was stealing them. He had complete access to the entire facility. He's been taking them for years and years and years, and then taking them to an FFL in Pennsylvania, I believe, who was then selling them across the country. Now, the way that he got caught was that a gun came up in a crime, and that gun had already been scheduled and marked as destroyed, which I thought was interesting. And in the article, it actually says that the slide, which I don't know how they would tell the slide because the serial number is on the frame, but I don't know if that's just miswritten or what it is, but this is a problem. I mean, they want to put all these things out there, but now we've got guns being stolen by someone who works at the ATF. And when the government says significant, in quotes, it definitely makes me worry. Rob Pincus.
Well, I was going to say a lot of guns do, especially a lot of the European guns do have the markings on the slides now. So I think that is possible that,
gotcha.
that they found that. But yeah, I mean, obviously the FFL that was involved, right? I mean, there's a trail of people. It's not just one guy. So they're holding this one guy up and saying, okay, we caught this guy, but let's hope that everybody in that chain, gets in front of prosecution, because with some of these things, it's like, okay, well, we're going to get the FFL to testify against them, and we're going to use that evidence to prosecute this one guy. But what about that FFL, right? Like now that they're not going to be prosecuted, do they still have a business? Is their FFL still valid? Because they had to be involved in this one way or another, complicit in the process, right?
You would absolutely think. And the other two people involved have not been charged. Only the guard at this point has been charged. So yeah, I think this is a pretty big deal personally. I mean, we're talking about FFLs getting hit, and we want to put new legislation in to make the penalties tougher for that. And we've got jerks like this just walking around taking whatever they want, putting it, well, and I mean, ultimately, I don't think the gun should be destroyed anyway. That's my opinion. But this is bad. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, back to what I was thinking when you said serial numbers are only on the frames. Glock serializes the barrel, the slide, and the frame. But, I mean, there's a possibility that the FFL didn't know. If you're just somebody bringing guns in and dropping them off and saying, hey, I want to sell this, but you show up with a bunch of the same guns that are high-end guns. I don't know. I mean, that maybe they were totally unaware of what was actually going on. I think it's a big fail at the ATF. On the ATF side, somebody that's actually going through with their company an ATF audit right now. It's just hard to take some people seriously when they start giving you stuff about certain things, and you're like, really, dude? I mean, you got a warehouse of guns that are walking out, and you don't even know. But I probably shouldn't say anything. But anyway, maybe this guy watched Lethal Weapon 3 too many times, because isn't that the exact storyline of Lethal Weapon? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking, but bad mistakes.
Prosecute this guy, put him in jail. If you're in the business of doing evil things with guns and getting guns into the hands of evil people, or you're stealing them, I think you need to spend a lifetime in jail, because you're complicit in some possible major crimes that could happen with those tools.
Yep. I want to move into our I'm Offended segment, just because I want to talk about a couple things that they're trying to push through. First story is Dems pushed 2 new gun control bills. This one is 2 major gun control bills. The first one is the Handgun Purchaser Licensing Act, which would incentivize state and local governments to implement a requirement that would be gun owners first obtain a license before making a purchase. This has been pushed in by a couple of House members, both Democrats, that followed a Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Policy and Research study, which found that the purchaser licensing is the only effective method of screening potential gun buyers. First off, what do you guys think about that? Andy, I'll start with you. Do you think that we should be required to have this education before we exercise a naturally given right?
License is flat out registration. No. You have to get a license. You're keeping that. There's a record somewhere of you having a license to have something. So absolutely not. It's just a way, again, to make it harder for somebody that possibly really needs a gun, from preventing them from actually obtaining them. Somebody who's being stalked. Again, back to what I said earlier. But no, absolutely not. I don't think somebody should have to obtain a license. It's pretty clear, shall not be infringed in the Constitution, and I believe that is a full blown infringement. So,
Rob.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not familiar with the study. I'm kind of curious about how they came to that conclusion. If they're including background checks like the NCIS check as a licensing permitting product. I just, that quote like kind of astounds me, and I don't really want to comment until I get to read that study. It doesn't make any sense to me off the cuff.
Yep. Second piece of legislation reintroduced a proposal to stem the publication of digital files or code that could be used in conjunction with a 3D printer to manufacture guns at home out of the oversight of federal firearms manufacturing rules. This bill, if passed, would outlaw the publication of digital instructions or code or just the STL files or anything else that you would be able to use to print any of that stuff right there. Besides not being able to outlaw that, enforce that, or anything else in the universe, it's ridiculous. Rob, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
It is. It's nonsense. It's, I'm sitting in a building where there's all kinds of cool lathes and tools. And if I want to build something that's going to fire a piece of ammunition, I could do that here in 30 minutes, probably faster than a 3D printer could put all the parts out. Now, eventually, are we going to get to, Star Trek, go over to the replicator and, hey, I need an MP5 because, H&K can't make an affordable importable clones. Just make me one here in the microwave. Yeah, I'm going to get to that. And that's cool. And there's still rules. I think that's the problem with that whole quote, right? Is outside of the oversight of rules, there's rules, and those rules affect manufacturers, and the rules affect people who build guns for their own personal use. And there's nothing wrong with that. And people are scared of new technology.
Andy, 3D printing, you think they can stop it?
Well, I just don't think they can legislate technology. I was watching a show on Netflix. Actually, what's funny is it was called Ghost Guns, and it was a documentary about these guys in the Philippines that are making 1911s exact copies of Springfield Armory 1911, including the serial numbers with hand tools. You can't regulate that stuff. I mean, this is just a kind of a scare tactic. Oh my gosh, you shouldn't be able to print a gun on your desk. You know what? I gave you the thumbs up because eventually we're going to get to technology. If the world's here long enough, we're going to have that Star Trek technology that I want an MP5 and it's going to print me one, So,
yeah, I'm in. It's the best thing I've ever heard.
I think it's a complete waste of time. I mean, the focus, the problem is they put so many resources towards stuff that really would have zero effect, where they could be allocating resources to something that actually would make a difference. That's to me the real problem.
Yeah, I agree. And you could still go to Lowe's and buy the parts pretty quickly and easily to
you
make
can make a zip gun at Lowe's. Yeah, like a Death Wish 3. Sorry, I'm on movie night after that Lethal Weapon thing.
No, man, I'm with you. So the next one that they're trying to push through, they're seeking to annihilate the PLCAA, which is the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, I believe, is what it stands for. And that basically protects manufacturers. We've talked about it on the show many times, but it protects manufacturers from liability and litigation when someone misuses their product. Like if someone goes and drives drunk and crashes into somebody and kills somebody, you can't go sue Nissan for that. But yeah, they have pushed that through, or they're trying to push that through, and they want to basically repeal that, get rid of it, which A, I don't think is ever going to happen. B, it would be pretty devastating. The gun companies would drop like flies if that actually did happen. People wouldn't be able to get guns. So they do want to take all the guns. They talk about compromise, but really they just want to take everything. Rob Pinkels, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Anybody who is pushing that kind of legislation. I know that a lot of people, just colloquially, when I'm sitting around and I'm talking to people who aren't gun industry people, or even people inside of the gun industry, this issue gets so misconstrued, right? If somebody ships a gun that is mechanically defunct, if it's not operating the way it's supposed to, they can absolutely be sued on a product liability basis.
Yes.
This issue is, as you said, you described it perfectly. If somebody takes a Nissan and runs over 6 people, can Nissan be sued for that? Which is ludicrous. it would be just as ludicrous to take a gun company and sue the gun company because the gun fired a lethal projectile really fast and really straight and it hit someone when someone purposefully pointed at them and pulled the trigger. Like, that's how guns work, right? That's what's supposed to happen under those circumstances. The gun company didn't do anything wrong. It was the circumstances that the user created, right? That's what the problem is. So a lot of people misunderstand this and they think it means a gun company can't be sued for faulty manufacturing or for poor quality control. And they absolutely can be, and they have been, as they should be, right? And that product liability is a whole separate issue from this. And I think that's important to make really clear.
Andy.
No, I agree with him. One thing that, again, if this goes through, you won't have an Advil bottle, a car, any type of tool made because manufacturers will be afraid. I mean, you could sue for anything. But I agree as far as, if I hate to say, if Glock makes a gun and when I shoot it, it blows up and it pokes my eye out, it's defunct and I use factory ammunition and it's doing that to many people, then that's a manufacturer defect. And yes, you should be able to sue the manufacturer. They make a trigger that goes off when it's not designed to, that you should be able to sue the manufacturer. But as far as trying to sue based on third party negligence, absolutely not. That's crazy. That's like Minority Report. Man, there's another movie quote. That's like Minority Report stuff, we can't, no.
No, I 100%. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It's a disaster. So, the final stories from our full auto news segment. Alabama man wanted for methamphetamines and an attack squirrel. And, this one, I saw some stuff online and people wanted us to cover this. But first off, have either of you ever wanted an attack squirrel?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to let Rob speak. But yeah, I did see that. I've seen the pictures. I don't know if it was the squirrel, but that was pretty cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not saying, meth or coke or whatever the drug it was on is a good thing. But, man, having an attack squirrel, that would be pretty –
yeah, that'd be
pretty cool.
Yeah, they received tips about it. The squirrel was being fed meth to keep it aggressive. And I guess to make it gun related, they found body armor ammunition and that squirrel in a cage. But man, what a time to be alive, Rob.
I got nothing.
I don't either. I ended the stories just a little bit early because I want to talk to you guys about what you've been up to and where people can find you. So Andy, you and I have talked, we did a little bit of stuff together just about the NRA and some of the things you were unhappy. In the beginning, I mentioned that you were a former NRA employee, now government contracting and firearms instructor. I do want to talk a little bit about the NRA. And Andy, talk for just a couple minutes about kind of what you think, where it's going, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, right now, the NRA is, the wagons, I guess, have circled. The people that are being questioned are kind of digging in. For those of you that aren't aware, there's some things that are going on at the top, financially that are questionable. I've actually seen some of that firsthand. Interesting thing is I was at I'm not going to say what type of event it was, but I was at an event this weekend and, there was 20 to 30 NRA employees there that I knew personally. And, out of 30 of them, I think 29 came up to me and said, "Hey, the article you wrote, the open letter you wrote, I just want to say thank you. And, we appreciate you giving out a voice for us." The NRA's in trouble. The NRA's in trouble. They're, they keep saying, guys like Willis Lee, who I can't believe somebody at the top hasn't looked at Willis Lee's Facebook and said, "Look, you just need to stop talking." Because, when I was an employee there, the biggest thing they told us is you do not engage, period. If somebody calls you, something terrible online, you don't go after them and say, nanny, boo boo, I'm an NRA board member or whatever. Willis Lee's off his rocker, in my opinion. Yeah. The guy's losing it.
Completely insane. Delusional.
And he's posting this stuff about, being on the high horse and how, he's got internal knowledge. I was there 13 years and you know how many times I saw you on my floor, Willis Lee? Bingo. That many times. I never saw you walking around the 6th floor on my side, which is where the programs happen. So if you're listening, sorry, man, I don't believe what you're selling.
He is
but anyway,
an incredibly poor representative on social media. It is ridiculous. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, what's funny is I've I hate to say this, I've been at events with Willis Lee. I've eaten dinner near Willis Lee at events with Willis Lee and talked to him when I was there. And, when things were great, I had good conversations with him, but no, for somebody who's been a board member for only 2 years and then suddenly to become the second vice president, I believe, that alone should tell people that there's something wrong. You got guys on the board like Robert Brown, Soldier of Fortune magazine. Robert Brown, that guy has been a loyal board member, outspoken, and nothing. Guys like Alan West, he's kind of a newer board member, but he's got kind of a better record than I think than Willis Lee does. But there's problems. You got high paid executives that are now saying, oh, yeah, we fixed that. You're not paying me $5 million anymore. You're paying me $1 million. So, we fixed it. So, I've been doing this for 25 years. You should just let me stay. Well, that's not how this works. You've kind of violated that trust there. And honestly, the leadership isn't there. And what's funny is, we start with Rob, we started this organization, Save the Second, and people are probably going to say, well, what's this about? You guys want money like everybody else. No, actually, obviously money's going to be needed to do things. But what's funny about it is my 5-year plan with Save the Second is I hope we're out of business in 5 years. Honestly, I hope I'm out of business and I don't have to do this crap. I've been asked by multiple people to run for the NRA board. They're like, Andy, you should, you're outspoken. You know a lot about it. I'm like, why would I want to do that? I see what you guys go through and no. Yeah. But with organizations like what we started to Save the Second, I hope we've said our message. We've helped fix the problem. And what's funny about this is our message is basically saying to the 76 board members who we hope to reduce dramatically is lead us. You guys need to lead us. You can't have board members like certain individuals. And I'm going to use names because you know what? You're on the board. Julie Golop. Okay. She was on the board. She is, well, you know what? I'm just a competitor. I just focus on the competition world. I'm a new board member. You're a leadership position. You need to actually get us out of these hard times. You can't just hide in the midst of 76 people and just pretend like this isn't your problem, because we elected you to help run this organization, lead us, get us through these hard times. And that's not happening. Everybody that's asking questions, they try to silence. So again, in 5 years, Save the Second, I hope we're not even around. I hope we fix the problem. I hope we've gone away. I hope the NRA is flourishing. People have called me even a FUD. I called an NRA FUD the other day, and I'm like, really? I didn't even respond to it. I was, whatever, dude. But people need to wake up. Members need to see what's going on, especially folks that are a little bit up there in years. I mean, I talk to people all the time and say, why is this my problem? And I say, well, you really want to leave a legacy and leave nothing for your kids? I mean, one of the biggest things that nobody's talking about, and I said this in another interview, is the NRA's youth programs has been cut dramatically. When I was there, we had 5 full-time staff members that were handling organizations like Boy Scouts, 4-H, Royal Rangers, JCs, Church Assembly of God, ROTC, all these organizations that involve the shooting sports. You know how many there are now? There's 1 employee that handles that, and I think there's 27 plus youth organizations. So Adolf Hitler said, give me a generation and I'll change the world. Well, in 10 years, the world's going to change because every year we get a different generation of people. And if people don't wake up and people don't realize that the NRA has deviated from their mission of training people to use arms and especially our youth, we're going to have a serious problem in 10 years because we're going to have 26-year-old kids, because if they didn't get out of the military, they're probably not involved in a youth organization that has anything to do with guns. So in 10 years, we're going to have 26, possibly 30-year-olds that are going to be like, never touched a gun before, never seen one, where in the past we had. So there's some serious issues. Anyway, I'll let Rob say some things.
No problem. Thank you, Andy. Rob Pincus, the floor is yours.
All that. Yeah. I mean, Andy was inside the halls. He's seen some of the financial malfeasance and seen some of the missed opportunity. He lived through the era where I think the NRA really pivoted to a hard position of niche marketing and really stopped lobbying, stopped trying to educate people in the middle ground, let alone change any minds on the other side, and really just kind of pandering and fear mongering to a small niche. That's been my biggest complaint, about the NRA for approaching a decade now, getting kind of louder and louder, including when I ran for the board in 2014 and was asked by the executive officers of the NRA to step aside, ironically, because of a perceived conflict of interest, because I was doing business with the NRA in our DVD program. Meanwhile, it's unfortunate that Julie becomes the target of this conversation, because she is the perfect example of the person who we all respect and like. But at the same time, I don't like that she's, sort of sidestepping all the hard issues and saying, well, I'm stuck, because I work for Ackerman McQueen on the TV show, and I took the board position knowing I wasn't going to be able to talk about any of these issues. Well, maybe you should have let somebody else who could actually do the work take the board position. And maybe it's time to step down if you're in that position where you can't actually do the work. You can still do a lot of great things, as you always have, for the shooting sports. And I think that's part of the issues of Save the Second. When we say we want the board to be chopped down to, at least 31 people, or at the most 31 people, I should say, chop that board down so we get rid of the people who have these sort of honorary, I'm a celebrity, Tom Selleck, Karl Malone kind of positions where they aren't really doing anything. Get rid of the people who are there but don't want to do all the work. Because what happens is, especially if it's somebody that's very likable and has done a lot of good things and a lot of people respect inside of the community, they get a pass, and it makes sense. Well, there's 76 people, 75 other people can worry about that thing. Problem is that empowers those who want to just consolidate power in the back rooms and say, well, there's 76 people here, and, 32 of them don't really show up, don't really care, can't do the work, are in over their head, aren't paying attention, are distracted, or only here for their own, self-promotion. I mean, you look at I had a lot of high hopes for Anthony Calandro, right? He spoke a big game about coming in as an outsider. Silence, yep. Right? He got the endorsement from the executive committee or from the executive officers. And as soon as they were campaigning for him, he went silent. He's not the tough guy. Now he doesn't answer to anyone. Well, guess what? I think he answered to the people that actually tried to get you elected, on the membership side when you said you were going to be an outsider. And now you're just an insider, who's been silenced.
Well, he's not just silent. I saw an interview or something that he did, or a statement that he did somewhere, talking about how, everyone's attacking the NRA. We all just need to stop doing that and get on the same team and do that. So it's even worse than being silent. He has so quickly just slapped everyone in the face who thought that he would be an agent of change.
Yeah.
But,
hey, he's got a big overhead at that big, nice range that he had some investors build for him. He's got to pay the bills. He's got to make the business happen. And I'm sure he's making some deals and making that happen, because now he's an NRA board member, and that's kind of how it works. But it's a disappointment,
Yeah, 100%. Rob, do you want the NRA to go away, burn down, whatever it is?
No, I will say, as I said in a statement yesterday, we have 5 points that we'd really like to see, right? Make the board smaller, set up term limits. We'd like to make sure that member engagement is increased. We want the member engagement to be not just about go vote for who we tell you to vote or send us money. We want members engaged in what the NRA is actually doing, the programs, right? Let's get more members involved in the committees, and not just employees or, buddies or family members doing the paid heavy lifting and some of the insider moves as well. We want to see things like stop focusing on identity politics and divisive issues, and don't be a front for the ultra conservative side, of the Republican Party, and get into immigration and get into, the mainstream media demonization, get into abortion issues. Let's stick to guns, right? Let's get 100 million people on board. So these points that we have, that's what we want from the NRA. Right. What we don't want is for the NRA to just go away. What I don't want is for a superficial, Wayne LaPierre resigns, nothing to see here. You guys were right. You got your way. This isn't about Wayne LaPierre. This is about a systemic and strategic change at the NRA to steer it back to where it should be, so it can fight for every American's right to keep and bear arms, not just, the maybe 5 million people who are super ultra conservative and want to listen to Dana Loesch complain about MSNBC as much as they care about their guns. And that's a big problem. So I don't want to see it go away. I will, however, say if it goes away, there are plenty of state organizations and plenty of national organizations, and those resources don't go away, right? If say there's $400 million going to the NRA this year, if 50% of that went away, but 200 million were distributed proportionately to the size of the other organizations in the community, without the NRA buying suits, buying flights, throwing dinner parties, going on big hunts, and doing everything else they do with Tony Macris and everybody at Ackerman McQueen for the last 2 decades. Well, guess what? That'd be more money than SAF and FPC and GOA and all of the state orgs that had come into their coffers than ever before when it had to get filtered through Fairfax. So I'm perfectly happy with 50% of that money going away, but going to the people that are doing the work on the local level. All politics is local, and that's fine. Obviously, our relationship with the White House that cost $30 million of NRA member money didn't do us much good the last couple of years. So I'm not afraid of the NRA going away, but I don't want it to go away. I want it to fix itself.
100% agree. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna touch on something that Rob kind of hinted at. It's funny as he talked about immigration and abortion and stuff like that, and people that are watching this program, people say, "Man, that's a new thing." No, this is stuff that when I was at the association, this was stuff that 6-7 years ago, and I'm not going to use names, but I will tell you this: it came out of some individuals in our law enforcement area where our instructors for the LE program were getting upset that the NRA was focusing not just on training and education, that they were getting into these, terrorist, NRA TV. And it's, by the way, folks, for those of you watching, it's not NRA TV. It's ACMAC Television. Okay. It's not run by the NRA. It's run by another company that, all that stuff, that Dana Lausch puts out and all this stuff those are things that the NRA is not really approving. So, but these are concerns that were coming 6-7 years ago from people that were inside the organization saying, why are you guys focusing on ISIS? Why are you guys focusing on abortion? Why are you guys focusing on things like that? And people were leaving the organization. So yes, that needs to stop. I mean, I remember when I first got there, we always heard is we are a single issue organization. You know what we care about abortion? We have zero opinion. You know what we care about regarding, I can't even think of another big issue.
Electric cars.
Yeah. You know what our opinion on electric cars are? We don't have one. I mean, that was what we were told to say. And you're right. Our opinion was we were Second Amendment folks, but it has shifted so much that we are starting to alienate our own people. We're saying, well, I'm going to go back to Willis Lee. Willis Lee, if you listen to his radio broadcast, I think he said the word Democrat 27, 30 times in one sentence. Guess what, Willis Lee? There's Democrats that support the NRA.
Yeah.
There's people that believe in the Second Amendment. I mean, I work inside Washington, D.C. I work with protective service officers. I walk up to people all the time that are gun owners, and the first thing they say to me, because they meet me and they call me Mr. NRA in my company, but they say, Andy, I just want to tell you, I'm a Democrat. And you know what I say to them? I don't care. I say, do you support the Second Amendment? Great. Let's go and shoot a gun. That's about what I say. I mean,
it's good.
But you get guys like Willis Lee. Here's the scary thing. That Carolyn Meadows article that she wrote about that governor of Georgia, where she said, I can't remember, and I honestly don't even want to repeat it, but where she said that the only reason that and again, quote, help me if I'm not saying it right, is she said the only reason that she got elected was because she was black. Isn't that kind of the basis of what she said?
It wasn't exactly that, but I do believe that
it kind of hinted at that, right?
Yeah.
She needs to walk up in her own building on 11250 Waples Mill Road, because there's a lot of people of different colors that work in that building. So, these people that are running it don't even know who the folks that are there that work for them. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but
no, I get it, man. Andy, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to, one more thing. I mean, since his name's come up so much, it's probably important at this point in the conversation for people to also know that Willis Lee is also a leader in the conservative movement to take back the Republican Party. So with him as the second vice president and him as the kind of loose cannon mouthpiece right now for the old guard and the status quo at the NRA, it's just that much more. He has a personal agenda and a personal investment outside of his work in the gun community to aggrandize himself inside of the CPAC world and inside of the conservative part of the Republican Party to take the Republican Party back for conservatives, which, by the way, I think sort of puts him at odds with President Trump and then therefore at odds with the position of the NRA. So there's a lot of complexity around his smiling selfie face that he campaigns with is not all that's going on there. And I think people are starting to see that.
Yeah. And I've said this on this show. I've said it on other shows. Many people have heard me say that he's fake. And if you're out there and you're a content creator, if you're someone who's high up and you're letting Willis Lee take selfies with you and call you his BFF, you're part of the problem and you need to fix yourself. Guys, we are out of time. Rob, where can people find everything that you're everything that you're doing and keep up with you?
On the internet.
On the internets? Rob?
Everywhere. If you can find the internet, you can find the Rob.
I love it, man. And Rob, one word answer, yes or no. Are you on team Yeet Cannon?
Yeah.
Perfect. Andy, where can people keep up with you?
right now on Facebook. I'll friend just about anybody. They email me, andrewwlander at gmail.com is where they can find me.
I love it, guys. And is there a website for all this NRA stuff that you were just talking about?
Go ahead, Rob.
Yes. If you go to savethe2a.org, you can also obviously go find us on Facebook. We have a Instagram account now that's just up and running. And again, you can find a lot of those links through, at Pincus Rob on Twitter, at Pincus Rob on Instagram, and Rob Pincus Pro at Facebook.
I love it. Go check out Patriot Patch Company, guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with me tonight. It's a great show, as always. And don't forget, guys, This Week in Guns is produced by Kenny Ortega and is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. We'll see you next week.